Welcome to the Sour Go-to-Market SaaS Takes podcast, where all your favorite SaaS leaders spill their controversial opinions while testing their taste buds. Get ready for sour candy with even sweeter insights.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Jason Hassenberg, and you're tuning into the Sour Go-to-Market SaaS Takes podcast. It's a show with sour candies and even sour takes. Today, I'm joined by Todd Busler, CEO and founder of Champify. If you haven't seen Champify on LinkedIn, you may be living under a rock. Todd, thank you so much for joining me today. I love the LinkedIn posts you do and your insights and just how vulnerable and open you are about how to move the needle in sales and how sales can really feel like not humane and not really personable. So I love that aspect of what you're bringing to the table. So how are you doing today, Todd?
I appreciate it, Jason. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Excited to chat with you. We're about to get very sour, tart, all kinds of sour candies and tart takes. I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful. So with that being said, let's dive into our first sour take. While doing that, we'll try our first sour candy.
All right. So how we do this? Bite first.
Yeah,
This looks a
bite
little tricky
first.
to eat. This looks some powdered situation.
Yes,
All right,
this
let's
is
do it.
Pop Rocks, basically.
All right, here we go. I haven't had these in like 15 years, maybe more. I think people are overly obsessed with automating things when it comes to go to market and using AI, and they forget that selling is about being human. And why I think this is important is, look, there's a lot of great tech at our disposal, and there's ways to make things more efficient, a new signal, a new tool, a new insight. And I think at the end of the day, account fit trumps all,
Yep.
right? And being a human and being consistent is like some of the most important things you can do. And I tend to see everyone trying to overcomplicate things, where like at the end of the day, people have been doing this and the mediums for hundreds of years, and the mediums have changed, and they're going to continue to change. But selling is by nature human.
Yeah, and just to I know you were an AE in your past time and you really were focusing on that cycle. How do you train, your sellers at your company right now to really embrace that humane factor?
I mean, the biggest thing we focus on is just business IQ,
Okay.
right? Just really deeply understanding where's this business in their cycle, what exactly is likely being talked about in their board meetings, what are the big levers that are going to move the needle for them for in the line of business that we sell into. um, how can you be empathetic with that, and how can you learn as much as possible so you can uh, you know be in their shoes,
Yeah.
right? I think we spend a lot of time on that rather than, again, some new scraper, some tech to tell you what their 10K said. Like, you got to do the work,
Yeah.
um, and focus on just like a true deep understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a founder, is it different the way you're selling compared to like an AE on your team? Is there something that you lean into more, or do you have to be more yourself than an AE maybe hides behind their title a bit more?
Um, Not really. I think there's some parts that make it easier and some parts that make it harder. Like,
Yeah.
the first bit of starting a company, founder sales is a huge part of that.
Yep.
I think there's sometimes it's easier to be the AE or the manager when it's like, hey, I can't do certain things, or
Yeah.
hey, let me get approval for that. Like, you don't really have that part, which I think
Yeah.
makes things more challenging. I think you just have innately a longer term view. And like, when you're an AE at a 100, 200, 500 person company, like, you're selling a deal that it might work and you're throwing it over the fence, it really doesn't impact you that much. And I think here it's just like a different level of wanting to sell to the right people, being really sure we can make them successful. Regardless of whether it's our fault or not, want to make sure you're doing everything right, that they have a great experience. So I think it's just a little bit more long term view.
Is there a difference in your approach when it comes to being at a bigger company versus smaller company, right? When you're really in that startup mode.
Yeah, I think a bigger company, the best AEs are really project managers and
Mhm.
quarterbacks, right? And they're really good at just getting all the right resources and lining them up at the right time. Now, don't get me wrong, and that exists at a smaller company, but you don't have the same type of, you know, resource at your disposal. So I think it's a very different skill set. The
Yeah.
early stage AE, even if that's the founder or the AE, right? That's the like, all right, I'm you know, I need to do everything to go above and beyond. And some of these things shouldn't be possible, but they're possible to win deals. Whereas, you know, the A at the big company is really about like putting the right people in the right positions, making sure people are well prepared and buttoned up, making sure the right exact connections are happening. So really different skill sets.
I love that. Well, Todd, thank you so much for that first sour take. That moves us into our second sour take. We're going to be trying Crybaby Tears. Now, the first three, not too sour, but they move you up to the last two. So with that being said, let's try it.
All right, here we go. All right, next sour takes for me is there's a lot of talk about consolidation in the market and tooling and saying, hey, no one wants to pay for multiple tools. I don't agree with that. I think that a lot of these platform plays are really bloated software and people use a small percent of that.
Yep.
And while everyone is yelling about consolidation, I know myself as a buyer and a lot of the people that we talk to are saying like, hey, if there's something that is best in class for a specific thing that we want to solve, we're happy to pay for it.
Yep.
And I think if you're solving a real problem, regardless how niche there is, there's money to be spent on that thing. I think just everyone right now, you can see a lot of the positioning is around, you know, consolidation, but like, look at some of these vendors that have grown, especially inorganically, to be consolidation plays, and how much of the products actually get used, I think is dramatically different than what might appear on people's marketing sites.
I was just at an event, the Blaze event, and we were talking about this and how is it more of like a lot, and it's a lot of these bigger companies that are making that move because they have that budget to be able to put into all these different products and put it into one. Is this, oh, everyone's looking to consolidate, being driven by speakers on stage, people on LinkedIn who are at these companies who are saying, oh, we need to consolidate. That's what it seems like. When you dig down deeper, everyone's like, actually, I'd rather be with the best in class service. You know, if it's a niche, it's going to solve my problem.
I think it's mostly driven by even bigger than that, just like, hey, what's happened in the macro world where,
yeah,
you know, people are looking at spend way closer. And I think that's actually starting to change a little bit. Like there's a little bit less scrutiny than maybe 12 or 18 months ago. I think most of it's driven by the fact though, that CFOs are just like, do we really need all these tools? Like there's been crazy SaaS sprawl. I was listening to the podcast yesterday with the CEO of a 1,000-person company or 500-person company. He's like, we have more than 1,000 SaaS apps, right? And he's like, and I get that, right? So I understand the logic, but I think when you get down to it, there's things that certain vendors do really, really well that, yeah, you may have some overlapping value prop with other tech out there, but it's still better than the alternative. So I don't know exactly what causes it, but I know that I don't 100% agree with the fact that every single person is looking for consolidation right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you don't have any data to back that up yet. It's just really a perception point of view.
I mean, our product is pretty niche today.
Yeah.
Right. And we're still winning deals versus people that are platform plays. We'll go head to head with a chunk of a big competitor.
Yeah.
And people are willing to pay us and sometimes pay us 3, 4, 5 times more than that sliver of a bigger competitor. So like anecdotally, we're seeing that for sure. I don't have tons of data on how that relates to other markets or other, you know, parts of the stack.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that, Todd. Let's move on to sour take number 3. We're going to be trying Warhead's extremely sour candy. This one will start to creep up a little bit more.
I think I used to trade these in the lunchroom in like 5th grade. Okay, next one, I think we'll hit home with a lot of people. Sales leaders that are screaming, do more activity, and not telling their team how or why, or that have the data to back up that's the right thing to do. I think in general, in this same vein, fits the mold of sales leaders managing by fear. I think that's really, that's played its part. And I think like the best sales leaders I know right now, they have a different mentality to it, both in terms of why they're telling their teams to do things backed by data, and also a different way of managing, stern and strict and really high standards, but not managing by fear.
how can, for the people who are managing in fear, how do you get out of that mode, or, and, you know, is there a way to get
I
out of
don't
it?
know if you can. I think it's kind of an older school way of going about things where it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm never going to tell you the answer. I'm not going to get in the boat with you, figure it out. I'm going to be in my office type of thing. And I think that worked in the past. I think like the way people want to be managed today is a lot different.
Yeah.
And, when the leaders that I most respect, the best CROs that I know, or mentors that I have that are multiple time CROs, are not that style, right? Like, don't get me wrong, they have extremely high standards and they hold people extremely accountable, but they don't do it from a place of fear. They do it from a place of camaraderie. They do it from a place of we're all in this together. They do it from a place of showing examples.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know if people like that actually change. I think there's like, that's kind of stylistic, and I think it's changing with the times.
Is it leading from the front, would you say, and kind of making sure the team's aligned?
Definitely. Like, I have a mentor. He was the SVP of sales at ThoughtSpot, and now he's CRO at a company called 2X, like this marketing as a service company. And we had him on a webinar a couple months ago, and he said this is little as things as, hey, we all need to go through some type of enablement. The best leaders are the ones that do that first, record themselves, show them that it's done, right? Right? Like, do you think he wants to do
Yeah.
it? Absolutely not. Does he need to do it? No, right? Because no one's holding him accountable. But that type of leader is like, look, I'm going to do this because I'm going to show you that I'm not above anything that we're doing.
Yes.
If he's going to ask to hold people accountable to a certain thing, he's also going to hold himself accountable to it. And I just think that style is what the best talent wants to work for today, 9 out of 10 times.
I couldn't agree more. And I see this in the way you operate, right? Like, you're not asking any of your team members to be doing things that you're not doing. And it goes into like utilizing LinkedIn, I think, is a great example. And so, like, I know I just saw a post with Taylor talking about, like, oh, it was a journey to get Todd to get on LinkedIn and to start building that brand. What made you want to build that brand? And then how are you, as a leader, making sure that everybody feels that, like, that movement towards, okay, he's doing it, let's all do it together?
Yeah, it's a good question. I never wanted to be like, oh, I want to be the person in front of the camera, like talking about something that I did. Like, I think there's people that are 10 times more impressive than me, 100 times more impressive than me. I do think what I started to learn is two things. The reach is crazy. So like the reach from some of these social media networks, platforms, whatever, like it's just really insane. And for our buyer, they're all on there, right? So it's like just recognizing the scale in which you can reach people. Secondly, was starting to see some of the numbers behind it. So like without even taking it overly serious or investing tons of time, just like comparing the type of eyes that you could get on certain posts versus like what you'd have to pay to do that. It's
Yep.
just it's crazy. And then I think the last part was Taylor really showing the numbers in terms of like, look, this isn't vanity metrics. Like, since you started doing this experiment, look what happened to our web traffic. Look what happened to our inbounds. Look what happened to self-attributed inbounds. People are saying LinkedIn. Like, it's not vanity, right? Like
Yeah.
it's working in terms of how we define success. And I think for me, that meant getting comfortable with trying to become a really good writer, and getting comfortable with some of my friends making fun of me that I went to college with for trying to be an influencer. Like, you
How it
just
works.
had
Yeah.
to do some of those things. But again, like, the alternative is so much worse, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, would you rather be quiet, right? And not let your company succeed? I think it's like, as the founder, and you've been in that position as an AE that has to hit quota, how important it is to have that solution that your company provides, right? And for you not to speak up and to not share those insights, it's like almost selfish in a way not to do that. Now that you have that spotlight. For me, like, Udi Lagor has been the person I look up to in terms of marketing. And like, if he never were to, like, drop those insights and to spread awareness of his own brand, I don't know if I would have been doing what I've been doing. So I think you're making an impact even larger than the revenue that's bringing in. I think you're making an impact on the leaders in their day-to-day jobs.
I appreciate that. And that is starting to happen. I get some DMs that make me happy, feel good of like, hey, you saved me from going down this XYZ path, or hey, that last post really helped me because now I'm approaching this differently, or I just took a course that you put out on P Club. Like, actually, that just saved me a ton of time. Like, yeah, that feels good. And I think most people don't realize like you probably know more than you think you know.
Yeah.
Um, and there's benefits of sharing that.
Yeah. And the aspect of just like, and I was just talking to Travis Tyler, and we were talking about how you have to be okay with almost feeling embarrassed when you're posting, right? Like your friends making fun of you. That happens to me all the time, right? And like you just realize that everybody's paths are a little bit different, and you need to. And so I guess my question is, how do you deal with that? How did you get over that? Was it the numbers, the metrics, or did you also have a mental barrier you had to break?
There was no real mental barrier. I think like for me, it just felt like, oh, I'm not that person. And
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it was
yeah,
kind of like, oh, my identity, that's not me. But
yeah,
then you start to realize like, wait, your job as a CEO of a company is to market. Your
yep,
job is to make sure people know about your solution.
yep,
Like your job is distribution. And like if that's what it looks like in 2024, that's the job. That's who you signed up for. So I
yeah,
think it was me just coming to realization of like, look, the alternatives about building a brand, building awareness are way harder, right? Or like way harder or way less effective.
yep,
Or just frankly impossible without going to raise, tens of millions of dollars very quickly. So
yeah,
yeah, it's just like, what are you going to do? Your job is to win. Your job is to keep AE's calendars full and keep awareness high. Okay, this is what you have to do.
yeah. And if you don't do that, the scale, like you're saying, the team that you would have to bring on to generate that awareness in itself costs so much money. So like I I think I mean I totally agree with you on this sour take. So that was a great convo. Let's move on to sour take number 4. This one I'm excited about. This has been the most sour candy. Everyone's rated it. So
Uh-oh.
we'll see how it goes with you.
This is what we're doing?
Yes, we are.
You make this yourself? What's happening here?
Yes, I yeah, I did it in my backyard. Just
Yeah, exactly. All right.
just for this
Next
one.
one is there's next one is product and eng focused founders who don't appreciate or respect go to market and sales roles. That's sour.
Oh yeah.
Hard to talk.
Yo yeah.
That's definitely, I think that's the point here, right?
Yo yeah. No worries. Brianna Doe, she was on and she couldn't. I mean, I've had people almost throw up, so you're doing pretty well.
Ooh. Um,
Put that to the side.
so product eng focused founders who don't appreciate or respect go to market and sales in general. There's a lot of technical founders that look at sales as dime a dozen and easily replaceable and treat them that way.
Yeah.
And I think that couldn't be less true in today's world. I think most products, the technical moats are getting narrower. The product differentiation is getting slimmer. And I think go to market matters more than ever.
Yes.
And to think that it's just a dime a dozen rep that anyone can go and replace, I just don't believe that to be true at all. And I think it's, in fact, like less true than 5, 10, 15 years ago, and significantly so.
How as a founder can you like since it's easier for you to relate because were in the sales role as a founder, right? But if you were speaking to, let's say, a product founder that's more product based or more technical based, how would you explain this movement and try to elaborate on why they shouldn't be thinking this way?
Um, yeah, a couple of things. So the first thing, I think this is really go to market and sales,
Yeah.
like not sales and marketing success, whatever.
Yeah.
I spent a year before starting Champify as an operator in residence at a venture firm and worked with a bunch of product minded founders.
Yeah.
And they could build the craziest tech and the expansive products. And at the end of the day, you had to have people to sell this. And
Yeah.
I think in showing them like what it took to actually go get customers, they started to have more and more appreciation for sales.
Wow.
Right. And I think a lot of people were just thinking, oh, I can turn on this PLG thing. It's magically going to work. I'm going to go launch on Product Hunt and I'm magically going to get orders. And the reality is it doesn't work like that, especially anymore because there's just so much out there. Every category is 10 different vendors. Like there's just so much out there that getting awareness, getting eyes, getting into sales conversations takes a lot of work from smart people doing hard, consistent work over a long period of time. And I think people that are treating them like, they're a dime a dozen are going to get into a lot of trouble just because like it's the craft is getting harder and harder.
Yeah. Yeah. And not to mention the churn and how much money you're wasting every time a rep churns. I forgot what the number
For
is.
sure.
And then you have to reinstall like all the values in your reps and being able to actually build that up again. Like Will on your team, I had the chance to meet him right when he was getting big, and I wanted to know, is that duo because of you two working together? Like, how did he get that voice? And do you work with him because I can tell that you put, at least from an outsider, you put a lot of effort into helping him, boost his skills. And so this topic relates really well to that.
Yeah. So look, we're not a big team. So like
Yeah.
we're all active. Anyone, not only go to market, but our entire company. We're super active in Slack. Everyone picks up the phone and calls each other throughout the day. Like we're meeting as much as needed. And we're constantly trying to get better, right? On, hey, what's the right account? What are we learning about this? What's the value prop here? Right? So I mean, what I try to do with Will and what I try to do with other reps in the team are, hey, give as much feedback as quickly as possible. Let's understand what objections you're hearing. How are you going to combat that? Let's add it to a doc. We'll drill it every week. So like we're just constantly trying to get better. I
Yeah.
think Will is unique in the sense that for someone with, only I believe like 12 or 15 months of real like true tech experience, his ability to understand how businesses operate and like where he should try to focus is really impressive. And I think I'm trying to take some of the things that he does well and combine that with other strengths that we have on our team. For
Yeah.
example, Taylor on the ops side, or Nate, an AE that he partners very closely with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Will is really, really solid, and I wish I could say like that's because I trained him super well. I think he's like one of the best SDRs I've seen.
Yeah. No, and it takes and to be in that SDR role or BDR role, it takes a special person to really
For
flourish.
sure.
And like it does take a level of support from your founder. And like again, like being in a startup, when your founder isn't around, you're kind of like, why isn't he around, right? Is he taking vacation, right? And you do want to see that founder, your CEO moving at a speed and caring about your success just as much as the company's success.
Yeah, 100%. That's definitely our goal. And we're all in it together. Like we review the metrics every couple of days. We're all held to a monthly number, right? We look at it weekly. Like everyone here is responsible and held to a high standards. And I think there's no one at Champify that doesn't respect what an SDR is doing.
Yeah.
And I think that role has changed quite a bit. I think that's like really turned into one of three different skill sets to be successful today. You either have someone that's like an ops slash AI nerd, right? That's like really good at combining lists and getting good at automation and
Yeah.
writing crazy sequences that are 10 times more complicated than they were 5 years ago. I think you have people that are just extremely impressive on the phone,
Yeah.
right? And just like relentless on the phone and just really, really good at it. And that's what part Will. And the third one is someone that's doing content well, right? I think Will is doing the combination of 2 and 3 really well. He's definitely not bucket 1. He owns that. And he's like, doesn't even try to get good at it, which I think is smart. But we have those chops in our team,
Of
right? So
course.
like we have other people that can do that. So that's
I
how we think
really
about it.
love that because I think everybody wants to be so well-rounded, but you have to be good at least one or two of those three buckets, right? if you're
And
more,
you're probably better off spending more time on your strengths than trying to get better at your weakness. Like
yeah,
he's
yeah,
not going to be great at that. Like just the
yeah,
way he's wired. I'm pretty similar. Like I
same.
and we hire for people that are. One of my co-founders is incredible on that type of stuff. Okay, great. Let's like have complementary skill sets.
That's smart. That's a smart way of looking at building out your company. All right, wrapping this all up.
I'm a
Last
little
sour
scared
take,
here.
Todd. I remember meeting you and you weren't even on your LinkedIn journey, and I remember our first conversation. I'm like, this guy is brilliant. This guy is brilliant. And then the New York event came up. I know you weren't able to attend. I know Taylor was there, but then just seeing your account pop up on my feed, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. I'm like, 300 likes, 500 likes, just the growth that I've seen. And personally, I always like, you inspire me because I was kind of floating in the LinkedIn feed and not really posting and got burnt out. But watching your posts and watching your journey through the last 6, 8 months has been very inspiring to me. And so I just want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that. I think I think two things. First is like, remember the goal isn't, I always tell people is like the goal isn't LinkedIn followers. I don't care. Like I
Yep.
don't care if people who know who we are. Are we getting awareness to Champify? Is it helping more people and discover that we can help more of their reps hit quota, right? That we can help them be more efficient and have a better time selling and not get laid off. Like
Yeah.
that's ultimately what I want to happen. And if LinkedIn is the fuel for that, or the thing that attracts more people to be able to discover that, then great, go and do it. I think the second thing is just being consistent. Like nothing on LinkedIn is like, or customer acquisition in general is like overly complex. It's simple, but it's very hard,
Yeah.
right? And like the reality is like people that have done things for a long period of time are being rewarded for it. And I'm just starting to like see the fruits of the labor of, doing something for 9 months straight. But it's all about consistency, right?
Similar to
Like,
working
and it's
out,
hard to stick with it. Yeah, for sure. It's the same
right?
thing.
Yeah. All right. Well,
The same thing.
we'll finish this sour take right here. Wrap it all up. Sour take number 5, Todd. Why don't you go ahead?
Last thing I just say is competitors bashing each other. It's the thing I don't like. All the time we get people that are like, whoa, do you know they're saying XYZ in a deal cycle? And this happens across every single category and across, it's been
Wow.
around for forever, right? And I don't think there's anything new about that. I just would hope that as every category keeps getting competitive, less and less of that happens, because I think ultimately a rising tide lifts all ships for most of these categories. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of potential winners that can have really good outcomes for hundreds and thousands or tens of thousands of employees. And I'd like to see less of that in 2024.
How can you, instead of hating on your customers, how can you be
Competitors.
positive?
What's that?
How can you be, how can you not like, I know it's easy, right? I was at a booth. I was next to 6 Cents last week. It's easy to say, oh, they're not as good or whatever. But at the same time, there is something when you're friendly with your partners. You don't know who you don't know, right? That rep or that VP at that company might not always be there. People churn all the time. Companies, like you said, it's kind of like there's a space for all these competitors, especially like I'm seeing Gong, Salesforce. They're all kind of going at each other for this like AI, how to use AI in your messaging and in your sales calls. So like, what's the advice there to CEOs, the founders, and how do we build this up so that we all win?
I don't know.
Yeah.
This is my first time doing it, so I don't think I have the best answer. And I think there's a lot of strategy that would say, call out competitors when they're bigger than you. It helps you get into the room, get into conversations that you wouldn't in. Don't bat down, bat up in those situations. I don't know. It's not really my style. So I don't know how to fix it. I think
Yeah.
the way we handle some of this internally is like, hey, we have talk tracks for each competitor.
Yeah.
Hey, here's how we talk about it. Like, yeah, some people have done things really well, or some people have, helped create a category, or some people have changed the way people think about XYZ, or kind of brought a new way of thinking into a market. Like, okay, you can pay homage and give credit to those things.
Yeah.
Then there's also, here's how we might approach things differently. And, you should make the educated decision. I think our job as sellers is to help people make a decision,
Yeah.
right? It's not necessarily to buy your thing. It's to make a right, ideally an educated decision that leads in your way, but it's ultimately to drive a decision point, right? And I think you should have a good talk track for each one of them. But I
That's
don't know how to fix the like CEOs going after each other.
That's a really good point, though, to have that talk track, because like we have talk tracks too, right? And when you have that talk track, it allows you to not be like seen as a hater, right? Like it's an automatic turn off, and you're like, oh, that person, like, and a lot of times you know, if you're talking to someone, they probably looked at a tool like who's a competitor of yours. They know what's good or what's not. They probably some of the things are going to be good. So if you go into it basically saying, oh, they're crap, you know, they're just going to see you as a hater. It's an automatic turn off. And I think that's not as trustworthy as actually being like, hey, yeah, they've done a couple good things. They might have, you know, been the first to market, but here's how we differ. And here's how we can help you. And that way things aren't back funnel talk. It's definitely a big thing. The SaaS industry is so small. So if you're caught talking crap about one person, normally it's going to circle around everybody else.
100% agree. Playing the long game is good.
Yeah.
People move around jobs. People want to work with each other. Things change. So yeah, it's something I'd like to see less of, but I don't think it's going away, to be honest.
Well, we finished it all up. We did 5 sour
4
takes.
was way worse than 5, by the way.
That's what people said.
4. I got this here. Never going to touch this thing again.
Don't leave it out if you don't have any pets or anything. I'm just saying. Had my dog one time. I'm like, oh no. He was like laying on the ground. I'm like, not good. But if we were to take, if for people watching, if they were to walk away with just one critical insight, one takeaway, what would it be for those listening?
I think most of your audience is go-to-market people, so I'll leave maybe one of these out. I think the biggest thing is just like everyone's looking for an easy fix out there. Like what we're selling, almost anyone in B2B SaaS right now, it's hard. Like it's harder than it's been. I do think it's starting to turn a corner. Some people that have a good view in the market, certain VCs, et cetera, saying we started at bottom. TBD if, some people are feeling that, some aren't.
Yeah.
I just think there's no magic bullet in any of this, whether it's building a following on LinkedIn, whether it's getting more consistent on sales. Like there's no magic answer. There's no one fix for all of these issues you have. It's consistent behaviors over a long period of time, hard work done well, constantly small improvements, and they're the people that are the most successful. So everyone looking for a new AI shortcut or a new way to save 10 hours or it's not out there. And I think the reality is like spend more time just constantly trying to get better at your craft and view it as a craft. And over time, good things are going to happen. That's how I look at it. This is my first time being a founder and CEO. I'm not an expert. Every day I have one more day of experience. I have mentors. I have people that I'm learning from. I consume tons of podcasts and read books. I'm trying to cut the learning curve. But like it's supposed to feel hard. Yeah, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And trying to lean into that, I think, is the biggest thing people can do.
That is amazing advice. And I think anyone listening would be lucky to have you as a CEO founder, just because the way you do lead and how authentic you are. I think it really, really, really rings a bell for a lot of us. So Todd, thank you so much. For anyone who's listening, you can follow Todd on LinkedIn. He's making noise out there. Taylor as well, Taylor Udell from the team, give her a shout out. And then Will Falcon. So Todd, thank you so much again. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise, Jason. I appreciate you having me. And I think I have diabetes now.
Thanks for listening to the Sour Go-to-Market SaaS Takes podcast, sponsored by Sales Intel, TAC, The Juice, Rev Genius, and Hockey Stack. More bite-sized content is available on our LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram.